Good. Just
I grab a Snickers pretty often from just the
Pretty
bodega
classic.
when I'm just literally like the commercials. When I just need a tide
Feeling
me over.
hungry?
Yeah, like when I just need to get through the next few hours. Like,
honestly though.
and it's like there's a lot of peanuts in it, so it's kind of like I'm eating real food.
Well, I was
like,
gonna say, like, nutritionally, I'm sure it's Cliff Bar, or like it's similar to like a Cliff Bar or something.
Right.
Like it's just sugar and
which says more
oats.
about how bad Cliff Bars. and
Right,
stuff
exactly.
are.
Like, but like you kind of like people feel good about eating Cliff
Are Cliff
Bars.
Bars that bad compared to the other?
No, I mean I think like all of them are just like pretty bad. They're just
Yeah.
like, oh, you're just eating a candy bar that has oats in it.
It's like the naked juice like thing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, I think we should just have a Snickers bar instead of like whenever we're feeling
That's
like
what Jose Mourinho thinks.
yeah.
It's Alex!
Welcome to episode 277 of View from 202. The voice that's introducing the show to you might sound a little different. It is me, Cork, here with Peaches and Sam. We are short of our usual host, Britt, who has been fired from the show. I mean,
Well, he tragically died in a train spotting accident.
well, we fired him before
And-
that,
yeah.
but yeah.
Well, that encouraged.
He had the time to go train spotting
Yeah,
because
but not like in the euphemistic way. He just was looking for trains to look at.
we dismissed Britt for just some abusive conduct towards other employees of the Energy Drink Soccer Show Corporation. We can't say what it is. And
We won't reveal it for 4 years at all.
Thankfully, no reporters have been able to dig up what it is that Britt did to get fired from the show and blacklisted and eventually killed. But we can assure you it was just horrendous. So
We apologize to the Toronto FC fan that he had sent a Twitch whisper to during our one live stream that we had on Twitch.
it was.
Unfortunate.
but,
Stupid mistakes were made.
But yeah, that voice at the top of the episode also might be kind of different. I might generally sound a little different trying to host in this episode. Like I haven't used this voice since the reporting
I was gonna
days.
say, like, you
this is my press conference voice.
right, you were using your diaphragm a little
Yeah.
bit. You're actually speaking into the microphone.
Yeah.
It's like
No.
your early 202 days.
You were the least disciplined on the microphone in the entire
And
202.
today I'm going to try and
Yeah.
clean it up a little bit and
We should have
be professional.
We should have put you in Britt's chair.
That's true. Yeah. It does feel like we're kind of bunched over in a corner because Britt does sort of sit over in a throne over the rest of us, kind of far away with a
He's
further
in-
mic. So.
It's more of a reclined position, though. You have to get used to it. It's like an F1 where they're like lying down in their cars.
Oh yeah, we actually have like the F1 like bench race car seats that we all sit in, like soccer benches when we're recording. But yeah, it's been another couple weeks of New York Red Bulls action that has been coming so fast and so thick that we haven't had time to record some weeks yet again. But we are back again covering 3 games. We have the Nashville home game that ended up, sorry, remind me of the score since I'm not looking at my phone.
No.
0-0, right. Yeah. Okay. But then the more exciting, certainly 2-2 draw in Montreal midweek, and then the 3-0 win at home over Toronto. That is our most recent fixture. And I guess we can just kind of jump into it. Nashville game, not the most Hollywood, not the most kind of telegenic game for the Apple Season Pass. But a game we must cover nonetheless. What did you guys think of how we came out and how the result ended up versus Nashville?
I got there just in time to be late for Drew Yearwood's plaque ceremony.
That's right. It was the return of Drew Yearwood. Of course, I think he was the first pretty quickly one of the first players cut at the end of last season as the squad got shuffled a little bit, and has been, seems like a, pretty straight starter for Nashville.
Yeah.
What was the plaque ceremony like? Did you actually miss all of it, or did you just miss part
most
of it?
I mean, it's probably the same as all the other ones.
Well, I guess it got a little bit of attention, I saw, because to also, again, color in some of Yearwood's exit, it was a little bit, it came on the heels, of course, of the letter saying the team hasn't been good enough and all that kind of stuff. And then, the context of, moving Yearwood out pretty quickly after that seemed to be an implication that he was one of the players who was not good enough. And, take that as what you will, but it certainly makes it a little awkward to do a plaque ceremony a few months later.
So is Barlow and Yearwood as the two plaque receivers so far?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
there's been another one.
Was there somebody else?
There's been another plaque.
I feel like it was less of a thing to do the plaques and stuff going back because it was less often that we were, moving players on to other
Another
teams
MLS
in the league.
team, yeah.
So I guess it might just be sort of, circumstantial that that's happening more often. But
I mean, it is like awkward though, too, because
it's way down the list with this club as far as awkward things. But
I mean, it's like awkward in the like you especially see it in Nashville where we clearly decided to start this initiative this year. Therefore, like we've only done it for players who've moved on very recently, and like guys like Muil and Davis who are
I guess they don't do plaques for like Michael Bradley or Josie Altidore or anything.
But like guys who like did contribute substantially to this team and have like a history with us don't sometimes get that, which is interesting in the way that they have set it up. I think it's like your first time back to RBA is something like the threshold. But I don't know. It's just like that's obviously weird, but Nashville, we did get to see a lot of our old favorites back on Nashville, which is always fun.
The Red Bulls Mania or whatever, that the touring show that Nashville puts on. They played a lot like Nashville. Doesn't seem like the interim manager has really reinvented things too much, which of course I think it was the main reason why they ended up firing Gary Smith, was because not only had the results become kind of mid-table, but empirically, the soccer was pretty dry, pretty dull, and it was pretty straight, deep block 4-4-2, and not really trying to send too many numbers forward, trying to rely on Mukhtar to kind of create some moments of magic. And that was pretty much what we saw in this game. Unfortunately, Red Bulls couldn't really answer back.
But Nashville couldn't really answer either. So
I mean, as the road team playing conservatively, I think that was maybe more in line with their game plan.
Yeah. And they're just like so
for us to finish 0-0.
But like that's also kind of historically where we get vulnerable to at home.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean,
it's
against deep bunkering teams.
Yeah. So like being able to manage that, I think, is maybe not like an objective sign of improvement, but one at least spiritually that I'll take. I mean,
you mean in the sense of like this was a game that under Struber we would have kind of wilted by the end and given up a goal or something. No,
so spiritually, in a sense, I think we've like come across better, but also I can't help but feel like we drop points as well.
Oh yeah, I mean there is still a pretty real chance at Shields. So.
Yeah, I mean like I remember like leaving the stadium being the biggest feeling. It's like sure, like we didn't lose.
I mean, well, and after dropping Vancouver and Chicago, that's a few what could have been pretty lucrative home games that didn't end up being the full points. So.
Yeah, left feeling almost like it was we were in the midst of summer swoon. Like that's how I felt leaving after the Nashville game. Because that is extremely winnable game, even down a couple of your key players. that should have been no problem. And the way that Nashville was playing, it was like last ditch defending throughout the game.
Right.
And then just a couple of like close calls that just didn't allow us to get a goal. But games like that would add up over the summer, like they have in past seasons. It really kind of felt like that was the beginning of that. But fortunately we yielded results in the next two games to give a little more confidence.
Right.
But like at that point, I think even just given the games like leading up to that, definitely a little nervous with games like that where we're just dropping points in situations where like we're just a much better team than we have been in the past. So we shouldn't be doing this again and again.
Right. And I guess to kind of fill in that, we couldn't capitalize and end up scoring on a Nashville team that was happy to play for a draw. I think it's, pretty easy segue into the fact that they were absent for this game, right? The international absences began for the Nashville game.
Yeah, because we had Mara playing.
Right, that's right. Yeah, okay, there you go. So Mara was in goal because, of course, Carlos Coronel is with the Paraguay team for the Copa America, even though he's been benched already for the first group game. I guess I had seen some of the discourse on that locally in Paraguay was that I guess Coronel, being a guy who kind of uses the ball with his feet and passes it around a bit, that's not how Paraguay is trying to play. They are trying to play route one, Tony Pulis ball. Yeah, apparently. So I don't know. Kind of stings a little bit to lose your keeper if he's not going to play, even though it is a good honor for Coronel to get to play. But then on the offensive side, where the team couldn't end up generating goals to get points against Nashville, the team was of course without Emil Forsberg and Lewis Morgan. Morgan, of course, with Scotland for the Euros. Congratulations for him. I think that had come out in the last episode, right?
Yeah.
I think we touched on that already. Yep. And, congrats and all to him. And he ended up playing all of 4 minutes of stoppage time.
No, I think he had like a little stint in the last game that was like 20 minutes or something, right?
I thought it was. I didn't see the last game. I only saw the first group game where he, of course, didn't play. Minute, but I thought it was like when I got like the foot mob notification.
He definitely got a minute.
Yeah.
And minute.
Well, I had heard, Emil and I had heard it was at like wing back or something.
Yeah.
When Scotland was desperately trying to claw back from their last place spot that they ended up finishing in. But anyway, that's all well and good. I mean, obviously a huge honor to go play for the Euros, especially after Morgan had been out of the Scotland team for years and years and, pretty openly desperate to get back in. So that's well and good. But then we have Emil Forsberg, of course, the captain and savior and all that good stuff for the team, who is going off to play friendlies for Sweden yet again. And then I guess coming back with a foot injury, I guess,
something
that is keeping him out. So, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you listen to the show, I've already kind of piled on and said my piece about, some of the flaws in making the team structured around Forsberg, and it's kind of rearing its head here. So it's kind of self-evident from my perspective, but I don't know.
Which, if you frame it like that, it's a good thing that it seems like we have a very competent manager who did not set us up to be dependent on Emil Forsberg.
Yeah, it's true. But I don't know. I think, say what you will about Forsberg and all the context of him and everything, he is an offensive weapon that we didn't have for a game that ended up 0-0. So I think there is something to be said for the fact that, this team, not like it's the first game where, they've randomly struggled to score. But it is the first time we've seen this happen when the team is missing some of the big players who they built around this winter.
Which, maybe that's like, maybe he isn't or shouldn't be really that big of a conversation for this team at this point.
I mean, well, that's interesting you say that about Forsberg, because it's interesting about Morgan too. The fact that apparently we were trying to trade him this offseason almost makes me want to be a bit uncharitable and say, oh yeah, well, this is closer to Jochen Schneider's ideal squad that we're playing with here.
Right
so
now,
maybe we should just sit back and enjoy the ride as we get the more pure version of Red Bull football these next few weeks.
Also,
although I guess Morgan will be back soon.
Right.
But.
About Forsberg too, I think we thought that there's going to be some problems with him being available all the time this season. But I do think it's like his availability has been pretty poor.
I mean, it's worse than I would have predicted.
Yeah,
even.
which is what I'm thinking. Like, not just the international stuff, but like he's already injured. He's already missing games to injury.
Mm-hmm. He has to get subbed occasionally, which I mean is normal, except if you're the captain.
Right. Yeah. And like I think I'm really pushing for like this narrative that this team has been like on a positive trajectory because of our signings isn't, I don't think, true, but I do think we are on a positive trajectory, and like I keep hammering home the point that I think it's the coaching that's doing that.
Right. I mean, and obviously we're starting off with the game that was a disappointing result, but going into these next couple games, it turns out the system is the star to say the curse. It is, we do have a manager who's built something that isn't reliant on individuals, that isn't reliant on supposedly top level personnel that we have all of a sudden. It's a team that is adaptable and can approach games different ways and with different personnel and formations, and I think that is a positive takeaway from this batch of games, which I guess is a good point to put Nashville in the rearview mirror and move towards the Montreal game, which, as always in Montreal, I feel like it was an interesting one. It's never boring up
the
there.
Quebecois air.
Even if you're just reading the stadium boards with their weird French ads and companies,
the pizza hot dog,
and companies that look like the same logo from like 1987,
right?
And like
the Saputo ads.
Yeah,
they never got hit with the refinement.
Oh yeah, it's very Lindy. In the Montreal in Stade Saputo. So
those fucking bells every time. I just like I'm brought back to when we went in, was it 2016? Was it 2017 when we went to the Olympic Stadium in like the
went to the Olympic Stadium both times we went.
Yeah, but it was like must have been like the second or third game because it was still like middle. It was like March, and it was a disaster game because it was the Carl we met, Dax McCarty, like little like showdown game.
Yeah,
and
slap.
Yeah, and they scored what, like 4 or 5 times. So we just kept hearing the fucking bell 90 minutes. What it felt like. So Jesus.
Wait, you think we could bring like a counterbell or something at some point? Or we should ring a bell when they visit us.
I'm sure like Toronto probably tries something like that.
Or like we should bring like a little like desk bell, like
just little. Everyone has little bells. Yeah.
Garçon.
But the game didn't start out too well. Certainly, Nashville jumps out to a 2-0 lead. Montreal jumps out to a 2-0 lead. First with a little kind of lapse on set pieces, which team's been a little more, as much as the overall play has improved this year, team's been a little more dodgy and foggy on set pieces, I feel like, this year on both sides.
I feel like that was the case.
Of course, Sunisi Ibrahim scores the first goal through a ball that's just kind of bouncing around and he heads in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was the case maybe earlier in the season, but we were getting better at it. So this might just be like a typical, like, we're evening out, on the averages, but
yeah, I mean, it is a thing. I mean, it's not like we were really missing any of our like tall defenders or anything like that, but it might be a thing. It probably would have actually been more of an issue last year, but it still is an issue with the personnel in the squad. And I think I've mentioned it before on the show. We're kind of a small team right now.
A coach had mentioned that.
Short team.
What coach had mentioned that?
What's that?
There was a coach that I'd mentioned.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I think it might have been Jim Curtin.
Yeah.
Who was somebody who said, like, yeah, they're kind of a short team and they're vulnerable in set pieces in that way.
And then they scored on us through set pieces.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's just more of kind of a big picture, long-term thing as the squad gets built going into the offseason to be like, maybe
we have gotten
maybe an extra tall midfielder or two
just
might
like
help
one.
things. Yeah.
We have gotten a little taller, though.
Well, we've sold Amaya.
Yeah.
Not to be rude, but
we gained Ayla, who's
Right.
like, a stick.
But he's not like the target, it seems.
well, every center back you sign is going to be tall.
Yeah,
that's
but even on like, I feel like what we've been seeing a lot more often is on these set pieces, we're going far post and we're going for like a single target, and it's Sean Nealis, who I just don't think is particularly good in the air, even being tall or relatively
It's after
tall.
a couple of years of, even before he was head coach, Lassane being on the staff and being kind of a set piece guru, and of course some of the routines could be kind of elaborate, and it's obviously been a lot more simple this year, and like you're saying, just hitting it directly toward the target, which we don't necessarily
if
have
we
a
had
guy
the
like
right
that.
person there, I would have less of an issue, but it's like,
we don't have Aaron Long anymore. Or like,
Well, this might come around later and when we talk about it, but if having a guy like Burke out there could help out too.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think he's going to turn around and get 90 minutes fit when he's like 33.
You never
but,
know.
But I guess Kai Kamara is still around, but
he just needs to change to true socks. And
yeah, exactly. But yeah, maybe Corey Burke has another decade left in him, but I would doubt it. But yeah, and then obviously later on go down 2-0. 2-0 before the half, was it? Yeah.
Yep.
Going into the half, and seemed like pretty easy game if this were a more downbeat season under a more cynical management team. Seems like a pretty intuitive game on the road, down 2-0 at the half, to just kind of close up shop and go into damage control. But no, this team kind of pulled it out, ended up stealing a point. Montreal, obviously not the, one of the heavy hitters in the league this year, but they're never an easy side to play, certainly when you're down 2-0. So,
and away.
Right. So, it was, job well done. And you guys want to maybe go into some of the goals, or I ended up missing the equalizer because I left the occasion or the shindig where I was watching the game a bit early. Because it was a school night and all, but
there were quite a few chances that had been generated, and I think mainly by Cam Harper before,
who's continued to be sort of, I wouldn't say underrated hero or unsung hero, but I think he certainly deserves any attention that he gets.
He's developed,
right? Yeah, I mean. Obviously, like we were just going through some of the more,
he persevered.
Highly rated designated players get more attention, but Harper has a good shout for being one of the best performers this whole season.
Right, but then we do eventually. Who is it? There's a shot from Elias Manuel at one point that gets rebounded onto Wiki Carmona. And there is, in his way, a defender and a goalkeeper, and he very powerfully puts it away in the top left corner.
Yeah, very nice finish.
Yeah, Van Zier doesn't do a whole lot in any of these three games, but he does have a nice ball to
start
Manuel to
enter the box.
to actually initiate that first shot.
Well, I think the thing about Van Zier is Van Zier and Elias Manuel are kind of like two halves of a complete striker. Where I think that Van Zier is getting into good places. He's like putting in the right ball. But like oftentimes there's just like no execution there. And then Elias Manuel just gets there and maybe
when
is
he takes
in the wrong
rip,
place.
It's a
just
fucking rip.
Yeah, but he's just like only execution.
Yeah.
I feel like he in a weird way Van Zier has like really good soccer IQ. Like he kind of knows how to play ball.
Place very often, and I feel like I don't know who was Carr was it like doing the commentary, and like he like did like there were just so many moments where he was like just like felt so bad for Van Zier for just
and
being in the right spot routinely and just like not executing, and just like it was almost painful to listen to him talk about it like on the commentary for the game.
Right. And unsaid in our Nashville segment was that Von Zer did not have a great performance in that game. Certainly. I thought, I mean, to go back to Carmona's finish. I thought this was one of the better Wiki Carmona games I've seen. Just a lot more moments where he could kind of use his flair. I think it was a game where maybe Montreal's spacing and being a home team gave him a bit more room to operate than he's used to at home a lot of the time. But saw some good touches, some good moments, and certainly the finish from him. But still, even when he was doing that, you can still just see the weird uncanniness of how just not complete of a player he is. Every time he has a good touch or a good dribble, he just doesn't have the engine afterward. Every time he, has a good turn, it's like, the balance is kind of lost, or he's in a weird space. I mean, just everything is just kind of one little stitch short with him.
Which makes it like especially disappointing, because it just feels like if he had a good coaching staff for the past 3 years, he could have developed into something.
Maybe, but I just think he's a weird player.
I think he's a weird player, but if you find I think it seems like he's pretty instructable too in a way, because I think there's been more purpose to his play this season, but I still don't know what that is.
I mean, that's the thing. The weirdest part of him being a weird player is that I feel like I'm usually good at hating on players. I'm usually good at seeing the worst in every player that I see. But with Carmona, I can't really pin it down. It's just very uncanny, that he just seems wrong as a player. I don't know.
It's like the opposite of being gluey and being a better than the sum of your parts.
I think the most frustrating part moving forward is, I think we've discussed previously that, he would be better suited moving further up in the pitch, maybe to match his skill set, and that he just hasn't been put in the right spot to be as successful. And maybe that's part of why we're not seeing what maybe the staff is seeing when they put him out on the field for routinely 70 plus minutes a game. I think the problem though is that we'll of course be discussing this a little bit later on, but it's more likely that he's going to be moving further back in the field and playing a deeper midfield role, if anything, on a rotational basis, given the absence of Frankie Amaya moving forward.
Maybe
I think that's interesting. I think it's a good show.
Because he did play that role previously before Doncor played it in this game. He did play deeper in the midfield in moments when Amaya or Edelman were out.
I guess Carmona was 21 or something. It would be a very early version of the
CCJ.
Pretty natural. Well, I was going to say just kind of like any central midfielder, or attacking midfielder, natural progression of just moving back into more of an 8 role. I mean, even Frankie Amaya had a little bit of that.
Wickleman Carmona was born February 24th of 2003.
Jesus Christ.
21.
Wow.
Jesus Christ. Maybe it is kind of an intuitive moment for Carmona to start taking over some of Amaya's minutes in that role. And I don't know, I could maybe see it, starting to work. I mean, if you're going to pick any position on the field to try and teach Carmona and teach him, that would kind of bring out the most dimensions of any position in his game, it would be central midfield. So,
well, I don't want him to take minutes from Doncor, who I'm already back.
You're already a Doncor dude.
I'm all about the Donk.
You're Dr. Doncor.
Yeah. No.
No, you're not Dr. Doncor.
Not after recent allegations.
Oh, okay.
We alluded to the second goal, I think, when we were talking previously about set pieces. But what minute did that come in? It was a good bit
80th.
Later, right?
Yeah, 20 minutes.
In between
minutes.
that was the chance that Harper had that we had talked about.
The shot that went over. Yeah.
Yes, and it was near the outside of the box. And it was one of the few good looks that Harper had. But in this case...
Also, you don't take that shot unless you're a confident attacker, I don't think. The way that Harper took that shot.
Yeah, agreed. Leading into the second goal here, it was a set piece into the box, or was it a corner in the box?
I think.
And there's a little bit of pinging around. It ends up going off of Burke, who had been subbed on at that point, across the box.
An aware header, towards the inside.
Yep, and none other than Julian Hall gets on the end of it to score a second goal.
He's he was 16 now? Yeah, he's 16. He's the second youngest goal scorer in MLS history.
Oh, wow.
But,
I guess they can't decide what his name is. Because they still... I like I said, I missed the goal, so I didn't see what the actual, what the call was on Apple. But it seems like, a lot of different powers that be can't seem to decide whether he's Julian Hall or... But then, as I've noticed, seeing the highlight of the goal, he has just his mom's name on the back, Zakruski. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have even attempted, but I don't know, just weird. I don't know, like many small things around the club, just kind of weird and awkward, and should get ironed out at some point. But we'll see.
I think the announcers pretty solidly go with Julian Hall, but on Apple TV. But I wonder what the PA announcers are told to say.
It's
with,
Julian Hall.
Cards.
No, it's Julian Hall. I think they say it in the stadium. But for English language, it's Julian Hall. But maybe it's Zakruski for the international audience.
I guess. But
I mean, it's Pulisic, not Pulisic.
Okay. But I mean, I don't know. I'm like, I don't, it's not like I think anybody's really doing this beyond just the general, hyping that any teenager gets in MLS these days, but not really, a goal, that convinces me he's some kind of star, just sort of a nice little set piece header when a ball's bouncing around, but got to be there and you got to execute, as we're saying.
Have to have some instinct to get onto that header now too. So it's like you did commit.
More than we can say about others.
I would never have done that.
I was referring to you exactly.
But I mean, not certainly. Like I said, I left early both for practical reasons and because it didn't seem like a game where there was going to be a whole lot going on in the later minutes. It seemed hot as hell up there. And things were getting kind of sluggish. Surprising that they went ahead and stole a point after, as we said, the pretty dire straits at halftime. So
and it kind of seems like that's where this team is a little bit this season. They're able to sometimes pull a late result or to eke it out to the end. I think there are times where this team, even with the exact, I felt like this was very similar to a last year team makeup almost. The guys who played. I
mean, more or less.
So and those same guys give up in the 70th minute of this game.
Mm-hmm. They're not
anymore. 7 months ago, and they're not. And, I think that says a lot about the coaching staff again.
I think that, and I think one thing that stood out to me is just defensive consistency. We're seeing the same group of the back four on a regular basis, injuries permitting. And I think that we're making the right choice at right back as well. I think Dylan Nealis has done, a very good job. And it's nice to see him getting minutes on a consistent basis over Kyle Duncan, for whatever reason. But I really do think he's been, playing very well on that side, and that the center backs are meshing well. And I think that's allowed us to either hold on to leads or keep us in games where we've fallen behind early.
It's funny that you say that, because I was thinking right now, I don't want anyone to look this up unless you're listening and you tweet this at me or something. But whether or not Kyle Duncan has played more left back minutes and right back minutes this season.
Oh yeah, that is interesting to think about. It's a good shout that he has.
Also, he hasn't been bad at left back this season.
Yes.
So You know,
That's low bar, but it is true. Yeah,
Yeah, but
hasn't been a disaster. I think.
no, I think he's even been constructive at points at left back. So I think like enormous headways there.
It's low bar, but yeah. I still think we should get a real left back to play those games.
Of course. But it says a lot that we have a serviceable guy.
So yeah, I feel like from there we can segue into the Toronto game, which I will have to take a backseat to you guys because I missed most of this one. But looks like I missed a bit of a party. What was the theme night? What was dominating
Fireworks
the stadium?
night.
Did they end up doing
fireworks?
Did they do fireworks?
Yeah, I had a little like up wristband that I was excited for.
Okay, I saw that.
Wow.
What was that?
I'm convinced that they're not like actually programmed to anything because he just kept lighting up at random.
were just-
I saw that on because I wasn't at the game.
Well, the whole point was just to have like glittering lights during the
you
darkness.
could be part of the show during the choreographed fireworks segment, and it was, I guess it's supposed to like go off like.
But
with
they were
the
like
music,
they were blinking like during the match too,
Yeah,
weren't they?
they
Like I
were,
remember
yeah.
seeing them on the goals. Everybody had their wristband.
They were just blinking throughout, which I think
like
if I were
fun.
a soccer player, I'd be pretty distracted. I guess there are like huge lights coming down at you the whole time, but
Well, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is very grateful.
no, they
for
actually.
that
Okay, I was
promotion.
thinking about this the whole time. I was like, what would I do with this? Like this blinking thing that's gonna stop blinking as soon as I leave. But they did graciously advise people collect them at the gates when they were leaving. Although I saw so many people bringing them home. I'm just like, what are you gonna do with that?
Were they even like swaggy? Like they could like work as like a fake watch type thing?
It's like, but it just has an Audi logo, the Red Bulls logo, and the QR code.
I'll wear a fucking Audi Red Bulls watch.
Okay, well, if you want like
I wouldn't, but
a
yeah.
live strong ass looking,
Yeah.
yeah.
but yeah, I don't. The fireworks were nice, pretty good.
I guess secondary theme of the night was
Italians.
inclement. Oh well, that's okay. That is secondary. I guess tertiary would be weather delays.
Oh
which is
yeah, the weather.
The second time we've had a weather delay in a theme night.
Okay, the craziest thing is that the weather cycle has hit us on weekday games and weekend games now, pretty consecutively. You know, I think it's a conspiracy going on. Look,
Well-
I know MIA has been selling hats on the Alex Jones shop, but I think these thunderstorms are all a ploy by Delaware North to sell more concessions at these 2-hour soccer games. It's like the
That's-
opposite of the pitch clock.
Oh, it's interesting that you pinned Delaware North because I was going to say that the person behind the conspiracy was Governor Kathy Hochul for
Maybe one and the same.
AKA Governor Climate Change, AKA Mrs. Climate Change. Who guess who Kathy Hochul's husband is? The CEO of Delaware fucking North.
Wow.
So I don't know, folks. I've got the Charlie Day yarn board out here.
The 40-minute path delays.
Draw your own conclusions. But
These 40-minute path delays, they just don't want congestion charging. That's what's going on.
I mean, fucking you. I just laid it all out for you, sheeple. I mean, do with it what you want, but yeah, there's a reason all these games are getting rained out.
We'll know next week if John Tolkien listens to this podcast or not. I guess.
Nah. But Peaches, were you there too, Sam?
I was not
Earl
there.
was there. Yeah.
So
I waited out the storm, which was like an hour delay, I think, or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was lightning going off constantly everywhere around the stadium. So
It was pretty bad in Manhattan.
Yeah.
It was a good heads up because it started to rain about 15 minutes after the game got postponed.
Nice.
So it was good
so you
warning
knew
for
not
me.
to go out for another hour after
Yes. Yeah.
that. But I got to take a walk around the concourse with Alex and Kate during the game, which was just interesting to see how much unused space there is down there. You know, knowing how, or like not the concourse, like the lower
second-
level.
Oh, just the asphalt.
Yeah, but like, you know, like we went to the crossbar, but like that could just be there, like that kind of stuff for like a place to sit. There were like these picnic tables that I just never known were down there with umbrellas.
Was this on the opposite side? Like on the
This was like under like the
north?
133 side.
Oh, okay. There's picnic tables down there? I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently.
Okay.
Or the 133 side. Yeah.
Okay. So it's
Just down there. But yeah, it's weird. There's like the stadium's like weirdly constructed, and like you notice a lot more things when you kind of, I guess, have more time to like wander around like we do during a thunderstorm. But yeah, like the Delaware North ran out of syrup in their soda machines because of the thunder delay. So
crisis.
Follow the money. Bill Hochul. I'm pretty sure that's his name, but yeah. But the soccer, the secondary theme of the night, the soccer game. How was that?
That was the fourth one.
The
We're
Italian,
on 4 now.
Italian night.
How was the game? I missed most of it, like I said, but I did watch a little bit of the first half where, as I remarked on when we were prepping before this, I wouldn't say pleasantly surprised, but just kind of surprised that Bernadeschi was kind of balling out.
Yeah.
I don't know if that kept up through the whole game, and he was kind of ball hogging a bit. Wasn't necessarily playing a team game, but yeah, definitely looked kind of like a class above in the way that you hear thrown around about a lot of guys in MLS, but he really kind of like, it's not even the first game that I've watched him in MLS, but maybe just he's feeling a little more confident and free now. I guess the Italians love Herdman, which is bizarre to me, but you know, whatever. A lot of things in soccer don't make sense to me anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he could kind of ball a little bit, and they like were generating some chances generally too, which was like they played better than the scoreline suggested, but not that much better.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that I guess Toronto's been like pretty markedly improved this year under Herdman, which again, I found Herdman like super annoying when he was the Canada manager and was expecting him and hoping for him to fail badly in the Toronto job, but it sounds like that's not happening.
Well, the bar was already so low. There's really no way to go but up anyway. So. I think that the commentators were saying that for Bernadeschi, like if he played out wide by himself, which he's obviously very capable of doing. I think they had said that that had been causing some problems if he played isolated and just like tried to bring the ball up himself entirely. But I think they were remarking that that Toronto looked a lot better when he was more within the team, kind of being in the core part of the team and being instrumental in some of the build up, but not just being like the star of the play itself. And I think that was kind of noticeable. But yeah, they absolutely look like a different team than what they had been the past couple of years, where, it was almost like a guaranteed 3 points, no matter where you were, where you were playing them.
What did Michael Bradley have on the Toronto FC like stuff to get so much power?
I mean, they were basically a Bradley family, like mafia organization.
What was going on?
I mean, by the time his dad and Armas were the managers and his uncle was the comms director, they really made
people
themselves.
People want to talk about the Berhalters. Look at the Bradleys.
Well, it's true. But certainly the Bradleys kind of earned, if any family in American soccer has earned the right to make their own little Nepo operation, it's the Bradleys. But it did not turn out very well.
It's not like the NYU Tisch school version of whatever this could be.
But so yeah, this was a little bit. This wasn't your typical kind of dysfunctional Toronto team of the last couple of years, and the Red Bulls kind of smoked them. So what all went on?
Goals, baby.
Yeah. Fucking kicking it in.
Oh yeah, reset the tapping meter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that Yengor goal, very very.
Oh
yeah, that is very tap in.
Yeah, that's true. And of course, another Cameron Harper picture book goal.
That one was so sick.
Probably the best one yet.
Along the ground.
And
Manuel ripped another one.
That Cam Harper goal felt like those far post on refinishes, or like BWP had a few of those.
Yeah, very BWP. I remember a few like that.
It's not quite the same level, but there was actually a goal in the Euros today that Kalinoglu for Turkey scored that was, a real top class finish, like, beyond, the quality of what even Harper did the other night, but the same type of goal where you're kind of like stroking it low along the ground.
Yeah, opening your hip up. Just
and just, requires a bit of class and quality to do a finish like that, and he did it.
And a lot of confidence, too. I think, Peach, as you're saying, he just plays with confidence.
Right.
Recently, and to finish like that, I mean, Vanzier's got to take some notes.
Well, I was going to say, like, he kind of... people, I think, are kind of maybe saying, like, if Vanzier gets one, he might get on a roll, which, like, begrudgingly, I think, like, might happen. But, it's also looking like the longer he doesn't get it, he might be putting himself into that mental space where, like, you see Harper's body language when he, like, is on top of a soccer ball, and he can beat a man.
Well, I mean, his game, he's like kind of a dribbling winger, kind of like the most confidence-based, the most confidence-reliant position and role on the field, and... Yeah, he is a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde player, certainly since he's been here. As far as when he's on, he's pretty unstoppable. But when he's bad, he's pretty much a passenger.
Which I think because he's been put into a fullback position so often too, it's not really suited him to suited his weaknesses necessarily the best. But yeah, I mean, like his confidence, but. Like Vanzier tries to do a lot of the same stuff, like the same cuts, and like I've even compared the way that they cut before and like how much cleaner on technique it seems like Cam Harper is at times.
Well, Cam Harper actually can run too.
Yeah, so true. He has that explosive way to get past someone, and like the way that he finds space in between players to like get a shot off too, even if it misses or even if it like gets saved, is just so much more productive to what we want to do. I think than like. Kind of holding up at this point because we play fast as a team, right?
Well, Harper is the beneficiary of the team doing so much 4-4-2 and 4-2-2-2 this year, formations that require sort of wide wingers, direct wingers. So he's benefited from that, but I was going to say that it was kind of, I mean, certainly during the Struber years and certainly, during the first Struber year when he was trying to run the diamond, there wasn't necessarily a role for a Harper type player in the squad to the extent that even in those early days, Struber said, I'm just going to use him as a striker. And then also Harper was the first player who Struber threw under the bus for, after a game, obviously. So, has certainly come a long way from that and has carved out a bit of a niche in the squad that it seemed like might not exist for him a few years ago.
I love the way that he's coming along. I also like to be on this team for this long. I feel like that he's kind of like a veteran on the squad at this point.
I mean, in a team like this,
and like to just kind of like be able to bear through an entire like regime and get through, and then like at this point finally kind of show off your worth. It almost feels like he's an academy player for us too.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron Harper. Doing well, selling Frankie Amaya for millions, Lewis Morgan and Carlos Coronel playing for their country
in big tournaments.
Seems like Kevin Thelwell knew how to find some good players. It would be nice if we had a sporting executive who could find good players who weren't just handed on a plate by Leipzig. But maybe someday.
We got to sell all the good players now. So.
Yeah, we have to sell all of those players as quick as possible, of course. But anyway, now that I got that dig out of the way.
What was the third goal?
Harper was the third goal,
okay.
But Manuel was the first goal.
That's right. That was the first
goal. And then
goal.
Yengor was the second one.
Manuel, also a good finish. Strong.
Manuel is the closest thing to maybe a canny, potentially maybe still successful Schneider signing. it just remains to be seen whether the team, signs another striker this offseason, which we're always hearing back and forth on that. Whether he'll still end up having a role and a kind of vote of confidence from the management going into next season, remains to be seen. But, he's certainly a player who shows flashes and shows that he could potentially be a kind of headline contributor, but, have to kind of wait and see how the squad shapes out. And certainly seems like the squad is still, kind of in flux as this was. It hasn't been officially confirmed by the club or anybody yet. I'm sure there's paperwork and shit still. But Schwartz came out and said after this Toronto game that it was Frankie Amaya's last game for the Red Bulls. And there was, bit of, certainly in contrast as we opened up the episode with like the Yearwood and Barlow plaques, there was a bit more of a kind of genuine and organic kind of send off for Amaya in this game, as he will be moving on to Toluca of Liga MX in the coming days for $4 million.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a fucking return
with add-ons. I think
He
it's
was
3.5.
we got him for $1
base.
million, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's, not to go again to another one of my cranks and gripes on this show, but New York Red Bulls have good players. The idea that they're just always, a bunch of scrubs who are letting down just the hapless coach, not actually the case. Teams buy our players for a reason, and they're buying them for millions because they're pretty good players. And it's going to be a shame to see Amaya move along because, this season and, depending on when he wasn't, on the shit list of the manager, was kind of the heartbeat of the team for a lot of these last few years. It's just unfortunate that he had to be around for those strange few years as opposed to maybe a better era of the club. And he certainly, in the further back context of him kind of ditching Cincinnati and, not really having any ceremony and kind of dissing them on the way out when he moved here. This time he came out and posted on social media that, a very nice kind of detailed message about what a good time that he had here and at the club and playing for the fans. And like I said, it's just unfortunate that it happened in such a sort of strange, dysfunctional moment for the club because he was a very classy player who was fun to watch for a few years.
I hope they have many good croque madames in Toluca. Or
La Baratin will have to make up the margins somehow now that Frankie won't be coming through as often.
Damn.
Hopefully he still visits from time to time. I would think they would hope.
Yeah, maybe. Man, it kind of sucks because it's like who's going to play there?
Kind of as we hinted with the Carmona discussion a few minutes ago, it is, yet again, this team is real trigger happy about selling good players all of a sudden, and especially mid-season of a year where supposedly the team is trying to contend and is very much in contention right now. Selling one of the best players is a bit odd. It sounds like Amaya did want this move and was a bit resistant to doing a new long-term contract with us. So it does behoove Schneider a bit to be open to any offers he sees. And of course, Maya being Mexican-American was always kind of his dream to play in that league. And certainly the money was good, and assuming Amaya is getting a raise to go to Toluca as well. So
yeah, the reporting seems to be that the Red Bull couldn't match his contract demands.
Right.
And they let him search.
Yeah, exactly. Which, again, very...
Which is,
just confusing, like many things have been about the club's personnel moves over the last few months. But, this is second summer in a row after Cáceres at the end of last year where the team is sort of just cutting the cord with its main sort of talisman midfielder. And it's playing with fire. Certainly, there's been a little bit of talk from some of the trusted league sources that the team will be shopping around for a new midfielder in the wake of Amaya's sale. But, you could have assumed that from the get-go, and not really a guarantee that this current sporting operation is going to come up with something very impressive. There were some rumors about Gustav Berggren. I don't know if we've mentioned him yet on previous episodes, but if you're online about the Red Bulls a lot, you've probably heard the Gustav Berggren rumors from Poland. But it sounds like that's kind of off the table based on some of the more recent reports. And then, we basically have that, and then just the sort of nebulous, like, yes, we will replace Amaya rumors. But then there continues to be sort of the drumbeat going into the summer window that the team is still looking to get a big bell cow striker, which means maybe moving on from Van Zer. But again, who knows? There's there are a few kind of creative rumors that I guess came out this week that were not worth listening to, but beyond that, not really a whole lot of smoke going on.
I think it's funny that you say that
where the team's going to go.
We might move on from Van Zer if in reality, I think they might be moving on from Morgan.
Wow, jeez.
But
let's
look ahead.
Let's not make it a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Anyway, as with my intuition with the sporting department, I think they see what I see in Ronald Donkor, so that's where we're going.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we said, Doncor's already stepped up in a couple games. I mean, Amaya had been benched, obviously, for the Montreal game, which eventually led to the rumors of moving to Toluca. But we saw Donkor coming in that game, like we mentioned a few minutes ago. Might see Carmona take on some of those minutes in the meantime. But again, this is part of the confusing reportage that we're getting from league sources that there's been some just kind of throwaway lines that I guess Stroud is maybe going to be healthy again soon. How much truth there is to that, who knows? The club was not very clear about how long his layoff was going to be when he first got injured.
I think people were saying they saw him training at the Members Plus session. So,
well, thank you, Red members, for
breaking that story,
for doing some reporting. Somebody's out there, talking about what's happening with the club. But it's kind of until more transfer.
Injury? Like if we had more transparency into the injury, I wouldn't care that much.
Right. But until we find out more about what the team's going to do transfer wise, if anything at all, we kind of have to look at those sort of options for how we make up some of these central midfield minutes. Like I said, with the Harper discussion earlier, it's, fortunate, I guess, that the team is playing a lot of 4-4-2 and 4-2-2-2, because it only requires two central midfielders. So won't be stretched as thin, certainly as we were during some of the diamond phases during the Struber tenure. But, will be interesting to see how those minutes are replaced, because on top of being a decent player, Amaya was a regular player, and have to have basic replacement level for that. So.
Rock solid in the midfield. I looked it up because I could have swore Carmona played one game in Amaya's spot, and it was in the Vancouver game where he played alongside Edelman. So I remembered it. I just didn't remember when it was. But that was the one instance where he did start there. I don't know if he's played other minutes in that capacity.
Is that good or not? I don't remember.
Well, we didn't. We drew.
Yeah,
right?
it was pretty mixed. I mean, he was kind of struggling.
I
think it was
to find orient himself in space.
Serviceable, but not like a game changing in a positive way,
right?
Or
not
I guess a negative way. It's just kind of there, and I don't know. Definitely not playing to his strengths, but I mean, I don't know. For Donkor, actually, in Montreal, what was your takeaway of his performance?
I've always he looks a little bit more mature, and I still think he's not ready. I think for the level, but he looks more mature than I would have expected.
You know what I'm disgusted by in the last couple weeks that we're covering this episode? No Sofo Sofo has been exiled to Sofo Island. Here's a name some of the older Red Bulls fans might remember. Fucking Sofo. Bring him back.
Well, I mean, like, maybe our striker issues could be solved by Roald Mitchell, too. So,
God.
I mean, like, I think he's always just looked kind of like, he looks better at positioning than Wiki Carmona has, I think, in my experience.
I'm not going to pretend that I have an opinion on Roald Mitchell.
No, I'm Ronald Donkor.
Oh, okay.
In his limited appearances, I think, like,
Yeah.
as a central midfielder, I think he looks pretty natural, which is more than I can say for a lot of our other players.
I've liked a little bit of what I've seen from Donkor. I think there might be something there. Just, we have to get way more of a sample size.
Yeah, like, he has to
which
be...
it looks like we're going to get, so.
Well, yeah, but, like, he also has to be the sub, I think. You know, like, we should have another guy. And I think the problem with our current midfield core is that what was working was, like, a Maya with one of these guys, not, like, Edelman next to Stroud. You know, like, I don't think they necessarily complement each other, which is kind of, I think, awkward, too, because, like, I don't know if... Like those two are kind of like our top midfielders, central midfielders, but I don't know if they're the best together, right? And I think that pairing and the chemistry of that pairing is almost arguably more important than necessarily the quality of both of those players.
Yes, agreed. I don't know who we would rely on shuttling the ball from our back four, from our defensive third.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of Amaya's game was literally carrying the ball.
He just did a great job with it, and he controlled the tempo of the game as well, being able to draw fouls in key moments. I mean, I think Stroud's pretty good at that too, but I don't see him as working super well with Edelman. I don't know if their skill sets are really complementary or if they're just slightly different variations of the same thing.
The game always answers your questions.
Yeah.
We'll find out. Speaking of which, we have DC United on the weekend coming up here. We don't have any midweek games after that, right? Feels like there's been a midweek game for like every
it also feels like there's been a
now.
million home games in a row.
But it will be a home game against DC United, a semi-homecoming for our old friend Troy Lesane, who will, maybe they'll. I would imagine
Stroud as well.
True. I imagine there will be some kind of plaque ceremony for Troy Lesane. I don't know. Maybe he's a bit more sore than a player would be about being dismissed at the end of last year. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what goes on there, but obviously we took the points in DC earlier this season. They had kind of a good start, it seemed like, under Lesane. Obviously, Lesane's first year in DC, but then I think they have fallen off a bit recently.
They're in rough shape right now. I think they've lost four out of their last 5.
Yeah.
Didn't Benteke get like a red card at some point?
I was just going to say, I mean, their game kind of lives and dies with Benteke. So
they haven't won a match since May 11th. It's been a little while.
Damn.
Do you think Troy Lesane's going to get a plaque on Saturday?
Well, I was kind of saying like it might be a thing where, both because it was a little bit acrimonious the way he was dismissed at the end of last year, and he seems like the sort of intense kind of personality that he might just say, no, I don't want to do friendly stuff like that before a game. Yeah. Especially since, he's the coach who's in charge instead of like a player who's just, being polite and stuff like that. So, we'll see what goes on there.
It's too bad Chris Armas isn't coming back this year because we're going to Colorado in 3 weeks.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up because, I was in the press box for Armas's first game back, which, mind you, it was one of the first post-COVID games when just everything about public ceremonies were kind of weird, but I don't remember there being any sort of acknowledgement then.
I think they might not have said his name on the announcements so that people didn't boo him or something.
It was in Toronto. Toronto got smoked in that game, and his substitutes. I think it was the beginning of the mutiny because like I said, I was in the press box and had a front row seats to his substitutes being not very respectful when they were being pulled off. So, hopefully it's better vibes, with Lassaine's DC than it was with Armis's Toronto. Maybe we'll get, speaking of just a little touch on news, maybe we'll have a friendly against Gerhard Struber's FC Cologne coming up in the next couple summers.
We did seem to have a lot of links to FC Köln.
So that'll be weird. But yeah, I don't know. You guys have any expectations for the DC game?
Apparently, they're calling up like a bunch of dudes from like Las Vegas Lights, even. So
DC United,
something like that. Yeah.
Is that like their affiliate or something?
Maybe.
Really? I thought it was like
Loudon,
right? I thought it was Loudon.
Yeah, they have that Loudon team.
But
But I think that their Loudon team might have been like the only MLS Next team. Their only MLS reserve team that didn't join Next Pro and like stayed in USL because DC's just still so fucked up apparently. Just a mess of a sporting operation.
Weird vibes team. Kind of hope I can see Christian Benteke, I guess, because he's a cool soccer player. But other than that, I hope we win like a lot.
I don't see any reason why we
goals.
we wouldn't. But just to confirm who will be back for the squad.
Morgan's back.
Morgan is back.
Confirmed.
Coronel is still out. Sitting on the bench.
Forsberg is injury question.
So Forsberg's unknown or like doubtful, right?
Yeah, maybe more questionable.
Who knows? I mean,
whatever that means.
We meaningless distinctions with this club the last several years.
Probable,
Is there a reality where he were to play any deeper than he's currently playing, or like is he solidly on the wing here?
As I referenced earlier, the kind of progression as you get older into deeper and deeper midfield role.
I mean,
certainly Forsberg would be close to that threshold by this point. So maybe he comes in and fills some of Amaya's minutes.
He and Edelman have very, very different just dynamics on the field. So
I'm now imagining a 40-year-old Emil Forsberg playing center back. And for like Colorado Rapids,
like Steven Gerrard, yeah. But
like Chicago Fire.
Yeah, all right. Well, the Atlantic Derby, the Atlantic Cup, this Saturday. Don't miss it on Apple Season Pass.
It's Alex. Push me and then don't touch me.